Greetings, listeners, and welcome to The Spiritual Experience, a show where we share stories of life, love, and redemption for all of humanity on Earth. So sit back and enjoy. Try to identify with the speakers and not compare. Don't forget to subscribe on all podcast platforms. I'm your host, Jay Lewis, and here we go. Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back, Spiritual Experience. I hope you guys are having a wonderful day, a wonderful life. I have some strong coffee and a dear friend with me today. This is a super treat. I've known this guy for a long time. I've been sober a long time. I've known him a long time. But before we get into that, don't forget to find us on Apple and Spotify, Google, wherever you get your podcast. Like and subscribe, share it with your friends, your family. We're all family. All right, so everybody, it's my honor. This is one of the reasons why I started this show, is to, get people who I really admire on here, so I can have a conversation that's normally just between him and I, and it's going to be between him and I and all of you. So everybody, say hello to my buddy Edgar. Say hello.
Hi, Edgar here.
Edgar's the man. Okay, Edgar, where are you from?
Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania.
And you're one of how many? We were talking in the car. You're a big family.
Oldest of 9.
Wow. What was that like in Pittsburgh?
Painful at times.
What were your folks? What did they do for a living?
My dad was a very successful eye surgeon.
Oh.
And my mother was a wonderful, exciting, angry high school graduate, period.
Right. Well, somebody had to wrangle you guys.
She didn't go to college. She didn't get no fancy degree. She wasn't a doctor's wife that way.
Right.
And it always weighed on her because she had more soul than most of the women with PhDs. She had soul.
Yeah, was she a sharp cookie too?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, she was very sharp, very angry, but she was the perfect artist's wife.
Right. Well, a lot of times I find that life will make you that way. You know, where like you don't have to have a PhD, like you said, or a master's degree, whatever. You have 9 kids and a successful husband. You know a lot about a lot of things that other people don't know.
That's right.
From experience,
That's
you know?
Right. She was a survivor. She was born and raised in the Depression in Pittsburgh. And if you know anything about them, there was no work.
Right.
Her daddy worked maybe 2-3 times a week. He had to work with the swing shift. You know what the swing shift is?
No, elaborate.
The swing shift is you work 8 to 10 hours in the day. Then you work another bunch of hours to swing over to the night shift. And then you worked only the night. And then when you're done with that, you work a couple of extra hours to swing over to the day shift.
Wow. Yeah, that must have been rough for her.
It was. I have pictures of her. She was a working girl.
Yeah.
Very big-time believers in Jesus, Baptists. Unbelievable workers. They're what made this country great. Incredible craftsmen.
Right.
Yeah, you have no idea the homes that were built in Pittsburgh. They were sensational. They used to put horse's hair in the plaster on the walls. It took an air hammer to break through those walls when they tore them down.
Yeah, I'd only been out to Pittsburgh maybe 2 or 3 times. I love it. It's like, I would say maybe one of the only places where I would live outside of New York City. Pittsburgh has a lot of like soul.
Yeah, it does.
You know, it's an old city, and I spent some time there, and like just outside of it, McKeesport, and I have a good friend that his daughter lives down in Braddock.
That's where my dad's office was.
Yeah.
Do me a favor, ask him if he ever knew Dr. Grana.
I'll ask.
Everybody knew Dr. Grana. He was a working man's eye surgeon. He had 2 practices.
Right.
One for the rich and one for the poor.
And it's so wild because meanwhile, when I went there, I had a great time, and I was already sober, and I was, doing some work stuff. And I went to the Andy Warhol Museum there, and inside of this, it was very cold.
Yeah.
And, you have like this inside of this, it's the Steel City. But inside of this like tavern, you have a place like Carnegie Mellon, which is like the dichotomy is, it's like, it's like the diamond in the rough.
Right.
Like, you would think like, oh, and the other thing that I thought was a little bit annoying, not to get on a tangent about Pittsburgh, is that they didn't care what side of the street you park on. You can park on either side of the street no matter which way you're facing, because I was driving this kid home, and I was like, we were on the right side of the street. He's like, yeah, my house is over there. I said, all right, I'll go around the block. He's like, no, you can just pull over and park right in front. It doesn't matter over here, So I enjoyed that, and that tram thing that goes up and down the hill.
Oh, the incline.
The incline, yeah.
We call that the incline.
The incline and the Primanti Brothers sandwiches and all that stuff.
Right.
Old donut factories there too. It's an old place. I love it. It has fabric. Not like, now we're in New York. Everything is Duane Reade, Rite Aid, Starbucks. All the apartments are gray and white. It's a little, it's lost a little character.
Yeah. Some of the greatest pizza in the world was Minio's on Forbes Avenue.
Yeah?
Oh, yeah. My brother and I still talk about it.
That's incredible. So are you close with all your siblings? What's the deal?
No. I'm very close to my brother and my youngest sister, Esther.
How are the personalities different and while you were growing up and, now also?
Well, we fought a lot because we only had so much mommy. We were desperate for more mommy. So we were sort of like a angry litter with one breast.
And are they all creative like you?
They wanted to be. Phyllis is. Phyllis rivals me, but she's so unsettled that it's hard for her to get focused. Judy wanted to be, but she died of cancer last couple of years ago. Nancy was very brilliant. She went to Carnegie Mellon.
Wow.
So did I.
Okay.
I was asked to leave. I was thrown out of Carnegie Mellon.
Oh, yeah?
They told me I had no talent.
Is that right? How did that make you feel?
Best thing ever happened to me.
Yeah, because when did music enter your life?
Back then, I was in music school.
Right.
When did it enter my life?
Yeah, so even as a kid, like when did you know that you had a talent in that area?
My mom. She bought me a toy xylophone for Christmas.
How old were you?
5, 6.
Really?
7, I don't know, right in there. Maybe a little older. And I was writing music on it. I already. She started making music.
Right away. Wow.
And she said, wow, what do we have here? And she took me probably to one of the most famous musicians in the United States. Definitely the top of the line in Pittsburgh. It was the Webster family, and he was the Scottish family that graduated from the Sorbonne in Paris. And his father was studied with Cassette Sir, who was a very famous French classical pianist, who was a personal friend of Ravel. So I am absolutely 100% steeped in the French tradition.
Right.
So I spent 9 years of my life behind a concert grand piano.
From what age to what age?
Wow. 6, 7. I started late in terms of getting into music. Normally you start at 4 or 3.
I think 7 is early for me, but I'm not a musician.
7, and maybe even 8. Maybe it was later. And I was competing with people that did start at 4, and I was so jealous. I might add, with all the conversation I can share with you, you can divide my life up into 3 places. One is total vulnerable, unable to separate myself from anybody I'm sitting in front of, figuring out how I could absorb their personality to let them feel that I'm great, I say that with a shrug. It was a hard way to live. The second part was total abandonment of my music, preluded by a nervous breakdown. I had a complete nervous breakdown. And my dad, who's a doctor, took custody of me. And I laid up, this is after Carnegie Mellon. In those days it was Carnegie Tech. And they asked me to leave. They said I didn't have any talent. And now, to this day, I have to be clear to people that I'm not sure whether my dad called the school and asked, or they called him. I still don't have that straight. But either way, I was out. I left. I said, I can't, 'cause I couldn't hear. I couldn't hear. This conversation I'm having with you is out of the question when I was 16 or 17. I was filled with so much noise, so much angst, so much electricity in my head. And I eventually snapped. And I can tell you where. And I can tell you who I was with. You see, it's a big fallacy among the straight world. They think, oh, you just disappeared and you didn't even... That is so not true. I was sitting in the movie Come Blow Your Horn with a sensationally gorgeous psychiatric nurse from Atlanta, Savannah, Georgia. Her name was Barbara, beautiful woman. And the 7-foot basketball player came on the screen, right? And I snapped. Right when I saw her, I heard a snap like this.
Wow.
And I heard it. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. And I was stunned at the consciousness of my mental health, of my mental problems. And by that I mean I was made sicker by the fact that I knew how sick I was than it being a mystery.
Why? Was it like hidden before?
Yes.
That moment?
Yeah. It was like the wave, then it go down. Sex would stop it for a while. I wasn't really drinking either.
Right.
I had one drunk at 16. Am I yelling?
No.
One drunk at 16 and put down. I was terrified of alcohol.
Right, but you were also committed to music this whole time.
That's
correct?
the whole time, up till I was 16, right?
That was your whole life?
Whole life. It was like, I always make it sound like it's like a professional baseball player being told that he'll never swing the bat again.
Right.
That's how serious it was. It wasn't just a Cub Scout league or mommy and daddy taking me off to doing something. No. It was like a major league player preparing himself for A League, being told you can't swing, your shoulders are going.
So what happened next?
That's when I had the breakdown. It's like when I went to Carnegie Tech, I couldn't hear. I'm sitting in class filled with so much anxiety. I was comparing. I couldn't hear.
Now, do you think maybe in hindsight a part of this was a culmination of you being so immersed in this world, and then it's almost like putting all your eggs in one basket?
No. I didn't think about eggs in a basket. That's what you can't do. I don't know if you're very aware of what it is when you're on the path to becoming a professional. You don't think that way. At least I've never met anybody who did. You just do it. You do the next thing you have to do to get better. That's it. You're totally focused and driven to practice another hour, and then another hour. It's not about all eggs in one basket. I never thought that way. But I didn't realize, Jared, that I was going down the wrong path. That's the key. I never really wanted to be a performer.
Right.
I wanted to compose. I had nobody in my life that could teach me composition. As famous as my teacher was, he couldn't teach me to write a grace note. That's the thing that really struck me about my world. It's so specific. You're either a performer or a composer. Now, there are people that do both. Bernstein conducted and wrote music, but it interfered. He was constantly being interfered with. He was never being left alone to write. People were following him around all the time, sticking their nose in his music, you see? But I never wanted to play for anybody. I never wanted to be a performer. I didn't care about learning Bach. Plus, what made it even worse is I had a mild form of dyslexia, where I had to say to myself, okay, here comes your right hand. Now here's left hand. You can't do that as a performer. It all has to be automatic.
Right.
So here I am at Carnegie Tech with unbelievable musicians, the best I've ever seen, and they were killing me. So I asked to become an organ major. Boring, nice man, boring instructor. Oh, was I bored. I ran off to St. Philomena Church to practice on the organ, and I smoked. In the organ loft, they threw me out.
So you've always had this little bit of rebellious streak.
Right, but in some ways, now let's work on that for a minute. I no longer call anything rebellion. I've learned that through Nathaniel. What I was doing was protecting myself from going any further in performance. By lighting up a cigarette in the organ loft, I was telling the world, I can't do this. You're going to get rid of me.
Right. I think in ways when we make those decisions, even subconsciously, it's like, oh no, I'm going to be who I am, not who you want me to be, or not who you, oh no, if you should be doing this, and be like, no, I need to be comfortable with who I am. I remember, when I left my Wall Street career, whatever, and then I started this business where we're sitting now in my shop. Like, I remember I had like 2 years until my licenses expired. So I could do whatever I want for 2 years, and then, but before those 2 years are up, I'd have to go back into like some investment bank in order to maintain my licenses. And I remembered, I was like, right before the 2 years was up is when I got this Yankee neck tattoo over here. That was me saying, I'll never put a suit on again and be in a cubicle or be on a telephone or doing any of that stuff. So you're here lighting like, listen, I'm gonna play this organ, but I'm gonna smoke these cigarettes and I'm gonna do this thing.
They got rid of me.
Yeah.
And I got rid of them. I left the school. They said I had no talent, but I paid a price. Because you're talking to, as you are too, no matter how tough you are, as an alcoholic, you're just so vulnerable. Right. And there's always somebody, always, that has a key to your vulnerability, someone. And that was the head of the music school. She was just a tough, non-friendly woman. And I was desperate for a friendly woman. Cut through. Got me.
Yeah. She left a mark.
She left a mark. And we all have it. Somewhere in your life, you have one, I have one. I mean, somebody, something that it takes an arm and a leg to defend yourself against.
Yeah. It's like the Achilles heel.
Oh, those are dark, man. I will never forget for the rest of my life. I still see it now. In Wilkins, was it Wilkins Avenue in Pittsburgh? Where Webster had his studio? I walked in, I said, Mr. Webster. His name was Ferguson Webster, Scottish. I'm quitting. Ooh.
Mm. And you're not even full-time drinking or anything yet?
I got drunk once, and I was terrified. Terrified at how it's comfortable. It was like a glove. Terrified. I'm not one of these people who just sucked it down and went and ended up. No, I put it down, man. I said, I can't touch this stuff. And I stayed sober for almost 5 years. No program, sheer will. I was terrified because I saw how it was so powerful.
The magic.
It just pulled me. And it sat there waiting for me.
Yeah.
So I went to Carnegie. What did I do? Went to Duquesne University. Oh my God. I got accepted in the music department after playing Mozart very badly. I said, this isn't for me. Really bad. Those are some of the most, it's one thing to end up on the Bowery and, turning your body into a urinal and living on the street with dog poop and broken glass and poverty. I mean, it's not a good thing. Don't get me wrong, I'm not comparing. But I am saying that the price I paid was even worse because I had the veneer of somebody that looked like they were together.
Right, you're going around to all these prestigious places.
And hanging out and with artists who wanted something too, and we were feeding off of each other and not being very healthy. How I never got into hard drugs, I don't know. But I do know. I have a theory about that, which I'll share with you in a minute. But the internal pain, Jared, the internal hatred was, I lived with Madame Deluge. It was awful. Night and day. Night and day. And I finally snapped at 18. And I sat in a sleeping bag with a pair of rosary beads for 3 months. I couldn't move.
Where were you, in your dad's house?
Yeah, I was living at home. Now, I'll have to check on the dates on that. I discovered something in my files that this was a little later. I thought it was the beginning of the 90s. It was in the middle of the 90s. Was it?
I don't know. What year were you born?
1944. I was at Carnegie Tech at the end up to 60. Then I went to Washington and Jefferson. College was cheap in those days, and I was studying to be a doctor. It was anything. Just hold on to anything. And I hooked up with this gay man. I worked in a mental hospital at St. Francis. Very kind. He used to ride in my car with me. I used to take him for rides, just to babysit me. We never had sex or anything, but he was so pleasant. He just kept me company.
Right, and you stopped playing music.
Oh, man, it was a hole. It was a hole.
So after Carnegie, you stopped.
Well, I went to Duquesne,
Yeah.
and then it didn't work. So I said, Dad, I'm going to go to pre-med. And, oh, God.
What did he say when he
okay.
thought you were giving up music?
Yeah, he said, okay, now he'll take over my practice.
Yeah.
Didn't happen.
What about your mom? What did she think when you were turning your back on
It
music?
was a sad day. But she never really shared much, but she was watching. And thank God she didn't say anything. She was watching. We never had a great relationship. Let me make this clear to the world. She was a perfect artist's mother. We fought all the time, but she took care of me.
Yeah.
I'd say, Mom, give me $1. She'd write a check for, I'm not kidding, she'd write a check for $1. She never hugged me. She was not a cutesy-poo mommy. Didn't babysit me. And that's what I needed. But you were on the streets with $2 for your name? Come here.
Yeah.
And I'm jumping ahead of myself a little bit. The times were so painful. The confusion, and this wasn't alcoholic confusion. That came later. This was life confusion. All of a sudden, I'm not a musician, being a doctor. What is that? My grades suck. I had a joke. I had to get my transcripts to take a job at Fashion Institute of Technology. It was so cute. I had to get my grades, and I sat and looked at them by myself in the library. Oh, they were awful. I didn't flunk any, but I certainly was not. You would know that I would become a world-class composer. You would know that I could write symphonies and ballets and walk out and take a bow. Like, you would know that. If you looked at these transcripts, you say, "This is a loser. Who is this guy?"
How did you find your way back into music?
All right, we'll get to that. That's a magic. Am I talking too long?
No, not at all. There's no time limit.
Let me get out of the hole. So I was struggling not to go back into the darkness. For those of us who've had mental illness in our lives and in our story, one of the great things is you have one nervous break. I don't know if you know this. I think I brought it up in a meeting once. You were there. You might have been there. I used to say in AA, can I mention?
Sure.
I used to say in AA, people who have had nervous breakdowns, you generally have one. Then you spent the rest of your life terrified you're going to go back.
Right.
So anyway, I had one. Dad, I hated him. Hated him I used to sit in mustard seed and cry from hate. Tears of rage. They weren't tears of love, and thank you, God, for saving. They were unbridled hatred for this man. I was eaten up by my disdain for him, that he controlled my life with the Valium. He would go like this.
Who, your dad? Oh.
He'd go like this.
Yeah.
Dad, can I have another, please? Please, Dad.
And he'd give you one.
One.
Oof.
When you saw that the Valium was kind of chilling you out a little bit, what I didn't realize years and years later in sobriety, he had saved me from becoming a pillhead. It was painful. I hated him, and he took the hate, but he did. I was not a pillhead.
He must have loved you.
He did. Because remember, in your beautiful, beautiful heart, you're a very loving person. Let me share something with you. Oh, everything I'm telling you, okay, about my life and my problems and drinking, all that I'm telling you, you have to understand that it was sitting in a boat. This life of mine was in a boat. And this boat was called Philip. And this is what people in AA don't know. Not they're not supposed to know this. Philip was my oldest brother that I dearly loved. 9 days or so before Christmas, he and his best friend got away from their mothers. He crossed a country road to a little knoll in a small Methodist camp town for doctors and officers. Crossed the knoll, forested knoll, the two little boys, they were 2 years old, 3 years old, and walked across a frozen pond. But what they didn't realize, there was a dam at the end of the pond, and the water was not completely frozen. And they fell into the ice. They didn't die from drowning. They froze to death in this frozen water.
How old were you?
3. And I was 7 months. They carried his dead body, and it was 9 days before Christmas. All his presents were bought under the tree. Neither mom knew where their son was. They each one thought Philip's with her, and she thought her son was with mom. No. The lady from the other child, she spent time in a mental hospital. She broke down. My mother, because my mother grew up in poverty and toughness, she had 8 more children. And Dad told me a secret about myself, that it's really the backdrop of who I am that is so poignant. He said, when I was 7 months old, I would, in my diapers, I'd walk around the coffee table saying to Mom and Dad, "Where's Philip? Where's Philip?" I knew even then about death. And for an artist of my level, and for my genius, that was devastating. To be 7 months old and to know about death. It was an irrevocable loss that would never be filled for the rest of my life. And I paid dearly for that. I paid dearly, because when I would get drunk, I became violent, vicious. You have to kill me before I'd stop. I was filled with hate. And this hole would come up in my face. Of course, you know, alcohol fills nothing. You know that. So when I tell you these things, I always have to remember, and you're a sweet guy, you don't have to remember, but you have to place my story against the backdrop, like a painting. You have to put my story against the forest of this death, of this child, that totally wrecked me. Mom held me. My sister Esther actually found the obituary in this little town. And you know that we all went back and looked at the lake that Philip died? We had a little ceremony on the shore. It was really beautiful. Beautiful. And we found a woman that knew my mother. She was 19 years old when she met my mother.
Wow.
She babysat us. Isn't that incredible? My sister Esther doing that. And would you hear something interesting? Only certain members could come.
Really?
That really opened my, ooh. I went like this, oh, this is serious. Tommy didn't go. I was really surprised who didn't go. Anyway, so it happened that music left me, and I was filled with sex, acting out. I didn't know, by the way, I was constantly molested by my dad as a child on top of all this. He would wake me up in the middle of the night and maul me and put me back to bed. I've come to see that from a man who had lost one child, who was terrified he might lose another. I no longer blame him or label that as molestation. Now, I have sons too. I don't know what I would do if I lost my son. I don't know. My youngest son got run over by a truck on his motorcycle 4 years ago on Iguanas Parkway. It all came back to me. Oh, I went to that hospital in Brooklyn. I was devastated. It was like I was 5 years old again after I got hit by a drunk driver in front of my mother, dragged down the street at the end of her car. This is after Philip died, in front of her, and laid in a hospital for 3 months. 300 penicillin shots. I have vanadium plate in this right leg, a hole in my side. I have abrasions, a bronchiectasis in my right lung. That was some of the darkest days of my life. But what that taught me, and it does for all of us alcoholics, some of us have to go absolutely against the wall. But there's no wiggle room. It's either die or cry. There's no wiggle room. There's no maybe, or if I can work my way out. We have to jam ourselves to the absolute end before we say, okay, I quit.
Right.
Some of us are like that. There's no, another get laid or get drunk again. Where you destroy yourself by the installment plan. I'm one of those alcoholics. I had to get thrown absolutely against a brick wall to get the message. I had to stare at the gun at my head. Are you going to stop now? Like God said to me, are you going to stop now? You have enough?
When did that come?
When did that come? Oh, God. So I'll tell you. I got married to the woman. I'm married 55 years to the same woman.
Congratulations.
We both laugh. I think I did everything wrong you could do to a woman in that marriage. And she did to me, too. My marital counselor said, Edgar, she's just as angry as you are. Stop beating your chest.
Yeah.
You're not a bad guy. Doing that male thing,
Yeah.
Anyway, I went over to Chatham College. It's in Pittsburgh. Foo-foo girls' school. Oh, yeah. Foo-foo.
Yeah.
You don't piss in the tulips, which I did. And I saw this blonde, skinny woman coming down the stairs like a movie star. I said, that's the one. Like a meat market. That's the one.
Yeah.
That's it. She's done. She said, you want a what? She went like this. She said, I want to marry you. She said, what? She said, I don't want to marry you. I'm going to go to Rome and be with my brother, was a commander in an army, in a base. He had his own base in Italy. They were big right-wing military people. Woo! They were the other end of the spectrum,
Right.
I said, no. I sent her roses. I said, congratulations. She said, what did you just do? Oh, yeah, I'm congratulating on you on our engagement. She said, dude. She didn't say dude. She's the New England Wasp. She doesn't say dude. She looked at me like, wasps, you ever around New England wasps? They don't curse. They don't swear. They just say no.
Yeah.
And she said no. I said, well, we got to work a little harder. And finally she married me. And I was drinking and whoring. I mean, a marriage license was it was an arrangement.
What year was this?
God bless us. 1967. In Boston. My dad loved it up there. He loves New England wasps because he wanted to be a wasp. He never liked him. That was another thing. He never liked being an Italian.
No, huh?
Yeah. To him, Italians were dirt. See, what most Americans don't understand is Italians were treated worse than blacks. They couldn't get jobs. My Uncle Mike had to chase garbage to survive. They don't know that. I'm not saying we're better. It's just part of the history of this country.
Yeah, everybody had their own turn on the wheel.
That's right.
Yeah, it's
And
not better or worse. It's just like, oh, I guess it's your turn.
That's right. It's your turn. That's right. Good way of saying it. No, that's right.
Yeah.
And Dad was incredibly self-conscious about being a Sicilian to boot, which is dirt Italian.
Yeah. Yeah, there's Italians and then there's Sicilian.
That's right.
Yeah.
So anyway, I got married in Boston. He loved it up there. Oh, he loved it. He was like, it was the best gift I ever gave him. I couldn't stand him.
Yeah.
I used to stay away from him. I got drunk out of my mind. I married this chick. She said, what did I do?
What kind of work were you doing at the time?
I was on executive welfare.
I don't even know what that is.
That's when your wife works and you do nothing.
Oh. Did you start playing music yet again or no?
No. This is why Janet, in some ways, I got to be real careful with this woman. Because I have left her a few times. Because I like the sex and everything. But I'll never find another woman who really understands me, who has got an enormous amount of space in her life for her husband to be crazy.
Yeah.
Not a lot of women are like that.
Yeah, I know I have one.
Yeah, they're really controlling. It's their way or the highway. I would spend 5 minutes with that kind of woman. And I'd say,
Yeah.
goodbye.
I'd spend 5.5 just to make sure. I'll grab something on the way out.
Right.
No, yeah, my Emily, she allows me to be who I am and get all the help that I need, which I need to be who I am.
And Janet let me be who I am. But no music yet. Now, this is why she's special. Is that I finally bottomed out in New York City. I trekked all the way through Iowa. I went to University of Iowa Writers Workshop. That's where I met Vonnegut's daughter.
Wow.
Some of the greatest writers in America were out there. Nelson Algren, Vonnegut, Vance Burgeli. Oh, man, I mean, unbelievable. See, that's another thing about my life that I have to, Edgar, sometimes the first step, we always say, you write a first step. You write your drinking history. I really need to write a first step on all the gifts that I was getting along the way. Not drinking, the artists that I knew, that loved me, that wanted to help me, that I pushed away. That to me is more painful than any drinking. I mean, really wonderful
Opportunities.
but nice people, good people. Here.
Yeah.
I'll never forget this Mexican writer. He was enormously famous, and his wife loved me. She used to go like this, Edgar, what are you doing?
Yeah.
And I was just pissing at her. Oh, my God.
You were trapped in the bottle.
That's right. I was upside down. Well, I was... No, wait a minute. Now, let's not get... That's that AA talk. I was trapped in myself.
Right.
And the bottle was making it... It was the...
Lubricant
and the Valium that I didn't put a gun to my head. I mean, that's another thing about my drinking. My drinking was actually more about being a pharmacy than being drunk. It was my lubricant. It was my drug that kept me from killing myself. Because you remember now, I ran out in front of a car in front of my mother when I was 5 years old. I was dragged down the street.
Yeah. So you ran out in front of that car?
Right.
Oh, I thought the car hit you.
No, I ran out in front of it. And Dr. Lee said that's called infantile suicide. I went, what?
Yeah.
That's from a top Freudian analysis. I said, what? That's called infantile suicide.
See, for me, like, I look at it, it's funny, like, when things are explained to me or uncovered to me in AA and having amazing friendships like I have with you and other people and doing step work and whatever, it's like when somebody would see my former life, number one, they can't imagine that I lived like that. And then I can say, oh, I'll give you some phone numbers of people they will verify. That's a promise. But they were like, you must have been out of your mind. I'm like, no. Like, I was trying to get out of my mind. I was in my mind, stuck in my mind.
That's right.
And I was trying to escape. And then eventually, and I was just getting moments of bliss because I was like, once you get past the point where you get that little bit of relief, then you're like, okay. But then once you ring that relief bell, then all of a sudden consideration for anything or anybody else turns gray, and it's just about you in the moment. And whoever's with you and whatever you're doing, nothing matters but just that. And then maybe tomorrow some guilt, shame, and remorse, maybe. But it was all in a race to get out of my mind because my mind was like this prison that, cemented me. My sponsor says it all the time. He says, we have this internal monologue. Right? Now, a dialogue is what you and I are having. When I have the monologue, it spirals down and down forever and cements me as the victim. That's because the truth is, and I talk about this with my kids and whatever, this other stuff too, that part of the power that we get in recovery is that we finally find out that there's another choice, right? That there was somebody who... whatever, same thing happened to me, happened to them, but they just made a different choice. Yeah. That I didn't know that I didn't have to be the way that I was. For me, I was like, well, this is working. Why stop now? Right? Why stop now until there's no escape from that pain? Yeah. There's nothing. There's not enough gin in the fucking tub. It doesn't exist.
And I don't know about you, I couldn't stand the taste of gin after a while. I just had to do it because it was a Valium, it was a Prozac. You know what I mean? It really wasn't about getting drunk to disappear. It was just stop it, Edgar. Stop.
Yeah. No. And then so you have all these, finally, when does the bottom show up?
Oh, yeah. I heard the greatest definition of a bottom from Bernstein's son-in-law, who was one of my students. He said, a bottom is when the circumstances in your life are falling apart faster than your ability to lower your standards. That's a bottom.
Sounds right.
So, and then I went, but the thing that used to save me, there's a little sliver here. I joined a Jewish fraternity. I love renegade Jews. I'm drawn to them. These are Jews that are Jews, but they're left of center, they're weird, they are communists, they're not suburban, they're just renegades. I loved them. We were just hanging out, and they were different. They would think up things that you couldn't, only crazies would know this shit. Oh, I love them. So ZBT was filled with them. So they took me in.
Right.
And that's when I began. Now, this is where you and I did the same thing. This identify little pieces of your story. It's like you had certain friends, or you would say this, you never really mentioned their names, but people in your life that sort of fed positiveness to you.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, even if it was a spoon at a time, he wasn't a plate. They would just like you. Or they would just say, hey, how you doing, Jared? And just the tone of their voice was kind of authentic. They just got through that thing you just described. Not many, but a handful. And you kept them around.
Yeah.
You made sure that you were near them somehow. Am I right? You know what I'm saying?
I felt like I was, yeah. And the point is, like, in my mind, I'm still not one of them, but they like me.
Yeah. I remember I was in Pittsburgh while it was all coming down. There was a note on my car. Come on now. A note from Michael. Michael was studying to be an accountant. He was vinegary, difficult, and he didn't like being around Jews. And he's Jewish. He just was always difficult.
Right.
Do you know that and I cherish that note to this day. He wrote, it's Edgar, it's Michael. You're really smart and you're really talented. Keep going. Do you know Jared, I can't pronounce, that saved my life for a year?
Yeah.
That saved my life for a year. That he took a moment to write that I didn't even know he was watching. I'm sure you have friends like that. Just somebody would say, how you doing, Jared? And you never really see them again. You pass them like ships at night.
Yeah.
Wow. So anyway, I married Janet around after graduating from Jefferson. Got married in Boston, went out to Iowa. And now it got serious. Now the alcoholism started to kick in. I was fucking everything I could fuck. I wasn't even beginning to be at home. And I got a little bit of you just thought, uh-oh. I got one of those, why am I peeing blood? Uh-oh. Yeah. It turned out to be just tissue damage from fucking too hard, not an infection.
Right.
But she was a lesbian. She couldn't stand me, but she was like, she gave me hickeys. And I came home, Janet said, what's that? Yeah. That was another thing about Edgar. I could screw up a free lunch. I mean, I'd be out chasing around, and you would think I'd put a dress shirt on.
Yeah.
Here, look at me. Catch me.
Yeah.
So anyway, I got my degree in writing. See my hand? Sort of.
Yeah.
But I started to do things. All of a sudden, I would put renegade musicians together, like a little bands, punk rock orchestras, and I would conduct them. And I was in heaven. I was in heaven. Where'd this come from? Not playing the piano. But it was doing music. It was normal. It was like I was putting on my shoes. Where'd that come from? So, and then I said, I'm going to see if I can get into the film workshop. And I did. And do you know that I won the Chicago International Film Festival for a student film? I was #1. But all it did was saying, well, I'm going to Hollywood.
So what did you do? You made a film or you made the score?
I made the film. No score yet. I was married now.
Right.
And Janet put her foot down. She said, Edgar, I can't start again.
Oh.
But I took the film to New York. I was going to go to the American Film Institute. I was going to be somebody. But now I'm getting ahead of myself. So I started to get involved. We moved to Gramercy Park. And one of the worst things you can do for an alcoholic that absolutely kills more of us than anything else, you know what that is? All of a sudden we become successful.
Yeah.
All of a sudden we're getting things. Would you know I found an apartment in Gramercy Park for $238 a month for 1 bedroom with a key to the park? No.
Oh my God.
Oh my God is right. 1970. And it started to happen. That's when the drum beat started. That's when it started. I began to isolate, and that's the big red flag when you start to drink alone. I just didn't want to be around people. Don't bother me. I just wanted to just get drunk. Leave me alone. And I became addicted to ouzo, which is a Greek. It's very sweet. I would finish a bottle off in 10 minutes, you know. I became violent. Now comes the painful part. I mean, these are the memories that will never go away. This is the price I paid for being an alcoholic. I was starting to pay the price. Now, as Johnny Brink used to say, there's a price tag to drinking and there's a price tag to getting sober. Now I'm starting to pay a price. I would black out. Where'd that come from? I would hit Janet. What did I just do?
Yeah.
That was the price. And they were starting to build. Started in Iowa. There's some behavior I did with women out in Iowa that the 9th step is never going to be big enough for me to say I'm sorry. It'll never make my behavior go away. It won't make it any easier. And it's a wonderful, powerful reminder to me as the guy that 12-stepped me into AA. Look back, but don't stare. But it's the expensive part of my drinking. I think about this. Oh, it was just crude. But it's important for me to think about it now and then because that's the price I paid and was going to continue to pay into New York City.
Right.
You know what I'm talking about.
Yes, sir.
Not every day was like that, but that one was a bit. It never goes away.
But you never know when that day's going to come.
That's right. That's right.
So you're bottoming out here in the city?
Yeah. So I went into the city with Janet, and she's a very smart girl. And lo and behold, I got a job. Isn't that, I started to make a documentary with a Dominican, wonderful, talented man. We fought. I wanted to be a star. I had no ability to share the microphone. None. It was me and nothing else. I didn't know. Anyway, I made a documentary in the South Bronx on heroin addiction in Spanish children. Beautiful little, I still have it. And it was getting up around November of 1970. And I was getting lonelier and lonelier. Stealing $5 from Janet, going out and getting drunk. And now I'm paying a price. Now it's happening. There's no more rain check. It was coming down on me. I was 25 years old. I'd get up in the morning and I would be out of my mind sick. So one day across the hall, a guy showed up with a bunch of dogs and a real raspy voice and a beautiful shiksa wife. Turned out it was Jimmy Trey. He was in the Jewish mafia. And Jimmy was attracted to me. He said, "You want a job?" I said, "Yeah." Janet went, "Uh-oh." He says, I got an antique store in the village on Christopher Street. You want to run it for me?" "Yeah." So I went down there and started selling furniture and stripping it. Not wearing any gloves, dead skin, coughing up black phlegm because I have bronchiectasis. I'm a candidate for emphysema. Candidate. Now it gets bad. Cough, cough, cough. Sometimes it takes 20 minutes to come out of the bathroom. 25 years old. The lungs of a derelict. One day I'm running this place, and suddenly one day Jimmy walks in with a big sack of credit cards. I said, "Oh, this is interesting." They were stealing credit cards from Kennedy Airport and kiting them in the red. You know, they were pretending you were making a purchase. You call up Visa. Visa said, "That's a stolen card. So by rights, you should be protected with insurance against, as a merchant, against that card." You follow?
Yep.
So now I'm running a bogus antique store. And then I said, "I can't do this anymore." Coughing up black phlegm, and I ran away. And they came after me. You can't run away easily from the mob. They don't let go. There's no retirement party. Jimmy said, "You're a fucking punk, Edgar." Blah, 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 blah. So anyway, I ran away, and that's when life appeared beautifully. That's when it became it was like I walked into the good witch of the East with wings. It was this wonderful Jewish guy and his unbelievable loving Danish wife, big-breasted mama. She just loved the world. She was always positive, and he was the most patient human being I've ever met. He liked me. And the hardest thing for an alcoholic to live with is to be liked.
Yeah.
And he let me be drunk. He let me chatter. He let me say, and he said, "Edgar, see this watchmaker's desk? Refinish it, and I'll pay you a couple bucks." So I did. It was a wonderful one, and that's when I started to get the message. That love that he and his wife showed me, that tolerance is a better word, that's space that he and his wife, oh, they were so big. I have his name right on the tip of my tongue, but they were just nice people. And finally, after a bout with a prostitute, and would you know that I'm trying to get a blowjob on the front of AA meeting in Paris? It was Mustard Seed on 37th Street, Christmas Eve night. After chasing some other poor lady around Manhattan, wanted to have. Oh, my bad. There I go again. That was the beginning of the total. And there I go. It was my behavior that broke me. Not the. There I am. Edgar, have you not been here before? Yes. Your wife's at home waiting for you, and you're absolutely smearing yourself on the street. So this woman, she was from Harlem. She wasn't really a prostitute. She just was a broke, out-of-work mom that needed a couple of bucks, so she's going to turn a trick with a white boy. And I screwed that up. So she said to me something that she gave me a blessing. She blessed me. I've come to see that she blessed me. She said, "I'm never going to get rich on you, chump." That was my first blessing. So it was on East 37th Street by Kips Bay, and I'm walking down 2nd Avenue. Oh, the first blessing, no, that was the second blessing. The first blessing, I now had a job making sandwiches in a Greek deli and loading the beer cooler, watching a television show that I had done on the monitor while I'm loading a beer cooler. That was something else. And for some reason, which I can never figure out, there was this heroin addiction epidemic among middle-aged Jewish women the Village Voice was talking about it. And I'm in the deli, and this woman comes in holding her baby picture up, and she said, "What happened to this little girl?" That was the first message. That was the first blessing. And you know how somebody gets honest with you as an alcoholic, it goes right in. You can't, and then this girl came in who was a girlfriend of the manager, said, the second blessing. Now I remember, it's coming back. Jimmy said, "Do you want a cigarette?" She said, I'm going to Smoke Enders. And Jimmy said, how's that work? "Oh, you stay away from a cigarette 1 day at a time." Doesn't that sound familiar?
Yeah.
And that was the second. The third blessing was this woman. So this prostitute, quasi-prostitute. And I'm walking down 2nd Avenue by Kips Bay. I'll never forget. I was on my left. And I heard myself say, "I need help." I didn't say, "God, I need help." I didn't know what God was. That was totally out of my vocabulary. What is God? Yeah. But I did say I need help. So there you go, Jared. That morning, Janet did the best thing she ever did in her life. You couldn't have done a better thing. She slammed me. She just slammed me. She did the almost perfect Al-Anon thing. She got up, looked at her purse. She could see that somebody had been in her purse. You know, there again, there was another $5 drinking spree. And then she did something that saved my life. She said, total silence. Got dressed, said nothing. Not a word. Nothing. Opened the apartment door, closed it behind her, and left. And boy, oh boy, nothing's worse than to come off a drinking spree or an acting out spree and being met with not even recrimination, nothing.
Yeah, it's like she's over it. It's a non-factor anymore. She's already made the decision. I've been there.
Oh, I looked at that door shut. I looked at that door. And you know, that's what we said, a moment of grace, a turning point. There was like, I was at a cross. You go this way or that way. If I went this way, maybe another 10 years and no Janet. Or this way, and start. Whatever that was. I didn't know. So the irony of ironies is, in those days, you could call up the phone company, the directory assistants, and they would 12-step you. She helped me find a meeting. Isn't that nice?
That's incredible.
Phone company. So she said, you have a meeting 2 blocks away on 21st Street. You're on 21st by 3rd Avenue. No, yeah, this meeting's at church. It's a very famous AA church. It's where Bill Wilson found his sponsor, Ebby Thatcher. I didn't know that.
Wow.
It was the church that Reverend Shoemaker was the pastor who helped build the first 6 steps of AA. I didn't know that. One of the weird things about my sobriety is it intersected with giants in the program, and I had no knowledge. No knowledge. People that were in the big book, people that were the first woman. I spoke at the first Caduceus meeting, met Marty Mann, the first female alcoholic that Bill and Dr. Bob 12-step. I met Lois Wilson, Bill's wife. I had no idea that these were giants in our program.
So you just went to this meeting?
No, not at this meeting. No, that was later.
No, but I'm saying like you called, they said, here's the meeting, and you went.
Yeah, Grace Church on 21st, Episcopal Church. And I tell this story, and a lot of alcoholics make fun of me and get very cynical. But I walked up, the church hall door was on 21st Street. The church doors were on Park Avenue. And I walked up to the door, and I looked through the door, And there was a light right above the door. There was an arch. And I could hear women talking softly to each other, and that kind of laughter that we have before the meeting starts. It's the same buzz that you get in a bar, but it's all sober.
Right.
And it got me. It got me. It just pulled me in. Pulled me in. I went in, and I knew that the thank you phone company, I was 26 and a half. And I walked up to Charlie, and I always remember, Charlie saved my life. He said, I was so rank. I must have been bizarre. I didn't even know what to say to anybody. I remember it said to Charlie, well, how long are you sober? I didn't know what else to say to anybody. And Charlie was always kind. That was the trick. That we have to learn that in AA. You're like that. That's the difference between maybe saving somebody and driving them out. He just looked at me and he said, 6 years, the best 6 years of my life. And that's when the door closed behind me and it never opened. I'm here. I'm not going anywhere.
Yeah, I think that what happens is, I was telling my kid who helped me put the floor together today that we're sitting on. It's like, when you're ready, nobody can say the wrong thing.
That's good. I like that.
But when you're not ready, nobody can say the right thing.
Oh, I love that. I never heard that.
Oh, yeah. And I know because, when what happens is that love that we've been apparently searching for, we get it. We only get it with us. It sounds crazy and it sounds very, I talk about it all the time in meetings. Like when I'm on the spiritual beam, which is, listen, I have a lot of very, very, very good days. And I have some days that are not great, and some bad days. But mostly now, because I've been for so long sober. But the best I am a lot of times is when I'm fully in the moment and I'm at peace, even in my own home with my kids or doing other stuff, the best I'll be is 99%. But when I'm in a meeting, I'm fucking whole. When I'm with you, when I'm with other people, my kind, my job is to service other people, which is what I do with the rest of my life. But our kind, I'm we're in the mothership. Like you said, that door closed and you were home. And you've been ever since. It's amazing.
Oh, a lot of people had the dirty job of trying to get me.
Yeah.
That's when I met my first sponsor, Jack Porter. He babysat me for a number of years.
Sure.
He used to call me Tiger.
Yeah.
Tiger, how you doing? Of course, that was the cue to leak all over him. Blah, 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 blah,
Yeah.
Like Ratso Rizzo in Midnight Cowboy.
Yeah. My first sponsor, he would purposefully not answer the phone when I called, so I would have to call other people. He taught me a lot about that. He's and this is what I learned. I don't know if I heard it from him, but most of my ideas are not of my own, which is, if you just relying on one person, that's too much accountability. It's too much pressure for a human being. So you need to have a network of people. A people means more than one. You don't have to have a whole gang, but if you have 3 or 4 people that you accumulate over time that know about what's going on in your life. My life is really good today because of all the mistakes I made in recovery and learning about those things and making a lot better choices by not making them all on my own. And that's why sobriety now is like a loose garment. I said this in one of my other episodes that I used to be so angry when somebody would say to me, I wish you a long, slow recovery. But that's really the key. You want to recover slow. And, you know, I've met a lot of people who are way too smart to get sober. But I never met anybody, it sounds cliche, I never met anybody who's too dumb. You know, because it's like seemingly things that don't look like it's going to work. Right? Because you're doing all these different things. You're going to meetings, you're doing this step work, you're cleaning up ashtrays, you're praying, you're all this whatever, and then all of a sudden, next thing you know, you're putting time together, and the noise starts getting less and less and less. So, how long were you sober before you started back with your music?
That's a hard question. That's the bottom line. So I got sober, still angry,
Sure.
unable to live with myself. God did not appear to me in a dark room and wave his magic hand. That's why I get a little impatient with these young people today. They just got it going on, you know. And I told my wife, I said, how can you have it going on after 2 years, 3 years? It took a lifetime to know what I know. That's for another story. So then it happened, which always does with a lot of us alcoholics, is you do get sober. And it's that sign, you know that sign in mustard seed? It's so fabulous. First you get sober, then you start to feel better. I'm paraphrasing. No, then you start to feel good, then you start to feel better, and then you get important. And then you get drunk.
Yeah.
But I wasn't planning on drinking. I didn't want to drink. But oh my God. The voices started again. Uh-oh.
All the things you kept at bay.
You know, getting sober is not for sissies. You know, it's not a clear path to tap dance, you know. I lived it. And I was chronically addicted to all kinds of sexual behavior. And, you know, it's like I used to say jokingly, a lot of shit gets through the first step. You know? Food. Oh, my God, I ate myself through it. Oh, I just lost 60 pounds. You watched me.
Yeah, I remember I was telling you. Because people used to say, yeah, you put down the drink and pick up the fork.
Oh, my God, and I did it. Anyway. I wish I could put in words the vacancy that I felt in sobriety. That's a terrible feeling. When you're sober, you don't want to drink, but you're empty. You're so empty. And a lot of us go through that, you know. And I didn't know that my music was screaming to let me out, let me out. You know, like a kid locked up in a closet, let me out. So as it happened, it always happens, right? That's how you met me. You go to a meeting and I show up. I go to a meeting and you show up.
Right.
So I'm an East Sider. I'm 100%. Rhinelander, Central Sunday Night, you know, Trafalgar. I'm 100% Rhinelander, East Side. And every once in a while, I like to emphasize this incredibly handsome culture, gay man would show up, suit, tie, vest, hair perfecto, and incredible gentleman. He was a cultured man. You could spot him a mile away. This guy's got, what's going on with this guy? You might not know, but you would be great. You know, he gets your attention. Right. Never cursed. He's also the angriest guy I've ever met in my. Sometimes he was so angry that his face would turn red. And he would ask me the magic question. He said, Edgar, how's your music coming? I would get apoplectic in rage. How dare him ask me that? Oh, I would become insane. I would become a walking, talking poster child for the second step. I would sputter. I'd be so angry. Like he was pulling my covers. Like, Edgar, how's music? Oh. Then he would walk away. He'd disappear for a while. He'd go to other meetings. He'd just do his life in AA, right? Finally, as you know, AA waits for everybody.
Yep.
AA waits for everybody. Finally, I couldn't stand it anymore. I think it was around Christmas. Everything's around Christmas, now that I know it. And I walked into intergroup, and who was answering the phone? That was another thing about him that really impressed me. He was just a regular Joe when it came to AA. He would do service, he'd answer the phone, period. So I sat like, you're right there, and this is me. You're John Coleman. And there's a lamp between us. And he said, hi, how are you? Finally, after some chit-chat, I don't remember, he looks at me, folds his arm, he said, Edgar, would you like me to take you back to music? My jaw dropped. And it was a sort of invitation that you can't say, let me call my sponsor.
Yeah.
You can't, no, you either say yes or no. So I said yes. Would you know, Jared, that he threw me out after 3 weeks? He said, get out. You're impossible. You're impossible, Edgar. I was impossible because I wanted to be best boy. I wanted to know everything right away. I wanted to be special. Sound familiar?
Yeah.
Because I am special. You can't learn a craft like that. You have to have some humility. So I went back to my therapist, and Dr. Lee said, Edgar, you never learn anything. You've never finished anything in your life. You know when someone hands you the truth about yourself, it burns. It burns your hands, it burns your throat. It went in, I went, oh my God, he's right. He's right. He's right. So I went back, I said, Mr. Coleman, please, take me back, please. I'm dropping the sword, I'm not interested. He said, all right, saved my life. And then after 13 months, he said, I can't teach you anymore, you got to go. Now what do I do? So I looked around, I found a jazz teacher, a student of Lenny Tristano, but he would suck on weed. He smoked weed during my lesson.
Right.
I mean, he was knowledgeable, but I said to him, now I'm sober about 4 years. So I know a little bit. Well, I don't know how I found myself over on Broadway, but I'm walking down Broadway. I'll forget this, never forget it for the rest of my life. Late 60s, early 60s. Late 70s, early 60s. And I look up, and lo and behold, there's Juilliard. Like this, I look up, and there's the arch going over a park. Juilliard. I'll never forget this. It was the same feeling that when I called up the phone company for AA. Same feeling. I said, I'm going there. That's where I'm going. So I took a course in music history. I'm so embarrassed to tell you this. Jared, I walked into that place. I just melted. I melted. I said, my God, I belong here. This is my people. This is me with a bunch of, twinks running around in tutus and, musicians who know everything. I mean, this is me. So I took a course in orchestration with Charles Jones, who was the instructor for Ellington's band leader, Billy Strayhorn. He taught Billy Strayhorn Stravinsky's Symphony in C. That's what I mean about me. In my apartment mate in the first floor was John Stravinsky. He was Stravinsky's grandson. He used to sit there and smoke dope with me in front of the furnace. Anyway, there was no weed here. It was total clarity. I said, wow, Stravinsky's grandson. Not grandson, but then Stravinsky's son showed up to teach part of the course because Charles knew him. Sulima. Oh my God. All this did was churn me with jealousy and desire. I wanted to be here so bad. I was literally chewing my nails. Oh my God. And every once in a while somebody in class would get accepted to the regular. Talk about jealousy. I'd be reeking with jealousy. No fourth step for me, man. And as Dylan Thomas said, there was nothing in my blood but money. I was like, this is it, you motherfuckers. I'm going to do this. So I I was in the library. It's just one of those days. There you go again. Doing some research and just aching and agonizing inside. And I walk out of the library doors, and who comes up the hall on the red carpet, famous red carpet, but a friend of mine, a colleague, a student who was in my orchestration class. And the only reason he was is because he had gotten sick. He had to go back to the Philippines to get better. And then he had to make up that lost course in the night division, which is what I was in. So we knew each other. And he had an attribute which is very rare among composers. He's generous. We're very selfish. We don't give ourselves up very easily. And I said, how do I go to the next level? I want to study with Mr. Persichetti. He said, well, you can't. He won't take you. I was far enough along in therapy and AA to know, Edgar, don't take it personally. He's giving you a fact. How do you get around it? And then he said, go to Stanley Wolfe, right there, his door. He pointed. Third most powerful man at Juilliard. He'll see where he can get you in. He'll work with you. I walked up to his door. I got all dressed up like this. I did a Xerox of a Bach transcription. Was the worst piece of shit you ever heard in your life. I didn't even know how to transpose a brass line. And in those days, there was no Xerox. I had to get a photostat. So it was this big.
Yeah.
So I see his door, and this is when Janet came in. There's his door, like you, and right here is a payphone and a water cooler. Payphone, water cooler. I was so frightened. I was bent over like you had punched me in the stomach. I couldn't even stand up. I was terrified. Terrified. I didn't know what to expect. I didn't know what to say. I called Janet. I said, I don't know what to do, Janet. So that's the point in my life with Janet. When I go, wow, look what she's done. And I didn't forget that. She said, you can do it, Edgar. Knock on the door. He rips the door open like he's waiting for me. I said, yes. I said, I want to go to Juilliard because everybody wants to go to Juilliard. And I showed him my music. He laughed at me. I said, well, I'm in AA. He goes, oh, you mean the Automobile Association? He didn't even know what it was. And that was the second thing I learned about my career. That was the last time I ever did that. Do not traffic on your membership of the program. Don't bring it up. In this world, it does not count. Your job is to stay sober, show up sober, do your job, and go home sober. They do not know what you do to do that. That's not their business. And you cannot get points. Oh, it was boing, right in my face. Big lesson. So anyway, he took me on. Now, he said the thing, it was really painful. He said, Edgar, you're going to be competing with Korean children who've been here since they were 8 years old. I said, I know. I said, let's go. I was so full of shit and bravado.
Yeah.
But he liked that. It appealed to him. Because the other thing that I didn't know about him, he was an Army veteran. And that time in the Army showed him what it's like when you step up to the plate. You know, he was not without fear and overcoming fear. So he had that in life experience, you know. He took me on. What was this, 78, 79? You know how much he charged me in 1978? You weren't even born, I think.
I was born 79.
You were a baby. He was charging $50 a lesson. Do you know how much money that was in 1978?
That's a lot.
Huge. So I went over to the Israeli bank. I did what everybody in America does. I said to the nicest, sweetest lady you ever saw in your life, give me some money.
Yeah.
And they'll give you all the money you want, but pay me. You know, I think it was those days, it was 2 or 3%. It was really, so I went to Juilliard, and I studied with him he made me audition for 2 years with no guarantee I was going to get in. I had AA in my left hand. I had Dr. Leeds in front of me. And I had Juilliard in my right hand. And I mixed them constantly. The smartest thing I ever did for myself was never stop going to meetings. Even if I fell asleep from exhaustion, it doesn't matter. It will never matter why you're at that meeting. Never. Fall asleep, get laid, not get laid, take the fourth step. If you're at a meeting, you want something, and you will find out what it is sooner or later. It's guaranteed. But you have to go, right? You can't do it on your own. So I'm here to tell the world, and I'm proud of this, I never stop. Never. Never. Also, something in, and I'm sure you saw it in your son, and Dr. Lee, my therapist told me, Edgar, the train only stops here once. This is it. You have you're no more. The train stops and it moves on, with or without you. Are you ready for that? Yes. And I meant it. I was. So, and then the second year, he made me come twice a week. So now I'm paying $100 in 79. Oh my God. Back over to the Israeli bank. Sure, how much you want? I have to laugh. They just handed it to me. Little did I know it was going to come back. So, would you know, Juilliard sends out invitations. They invite you to audition. Okay? His name was Stanley Wolf, Mr. Wolf. He said, Edgar, take the last date that they provide. Okay? What's that? It's in September 15th, I think. I kept waiting. The letter never came, Jared. No letter. I finally called the school up. When? Come September 15th. Like, you know, schools and administration, I'm sure you saw that with your son. They sort of, you know, they get it right. Not always, you know?
Right.
And I went over, and oh my God, who was auditioning me? The monster himself, the most famous academic teacher of composition in the United States. Top of the line. Vincent Persichetti. Top of the line. Nobody topper. Sitting on his right was Milton Babbitt. He taught Sondheim. Over here was another incredibly famous composer. And there was Edgar. Now, if you didn't think I wanted to pee, you're crazy. I had no, Persichetti, God bless him, he could have killed me. He could have chewed me up and spit me out. He goes up to the piano and he plays a chord. He says, what is that? Major? Minor? He was playing with me. He was playing. I come to see later. He could have. Oh my God, Jared. He could have killed me. He was like, calm down, Jared. Come on, okay. What's this note? Ba 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 ba. Oh, that's the scale. It's like, I couldn't hear. I was back to that. I could barely hear. I was so frightened. Roger Sessions, Vincent Persichetti, Milton Babbitt. Monsters. That was like the major leagues in academic teaching. I said, okay, thank you. I took my audition. You may be excused. And then the fire alarm went off in the middle of my audition.
No way.
But I know who did it. Stanley Wolfe pulled the fire. He interrupted my audition. There are a lot of secrets here, but I can't get too far into. Now, the second thing I didn't know is just because you get accepted to Juilliard, I wonder if your son had to go through, doesn't mean you're in. Some teacher in the faculty has to say, I'm going to take him. You just get on a short list. And then the 7 teachers decide who's going to take what students. And if you don't get picked, you don't get in.
Yeah, when my son went to SVA, he had an internship there in high school. Because he was, at the time, he was in an alternative high school. He had gotten in a little bit of trouble, and he was going nowhere. And there was a lady who took a liking to him and showed him the camera, and then saw that he didn't belong there with the other kids. And that really turned his life around. And I believe she knew somebody at SVA and was like, this kid has raw, incredible talent, same hunger like you, like I will not be stopped. And then they let him like sweep the floors in like the place where they rent the stuff at SVA when he was in high school. Then he learned, and then there was and then he got in. He won a few awards, and they featured some of his. He had like a small gallery there, and then when it came time, that was the only place he applied. He didn't even want to apply to FIT or nowhere. He just wanted SVA, and then when he got there, there were kids there that were not. They were not like him. They were from wealthy families in Spain and France and all over the world. Send their kids there. They put them in these apartments in Midtown. They give them every laptop and everything, but they don't have that hunger. And within a semester or two, they go into critiquing because their art is not good enough. Where he made it, and then there was a guy that saw him twiddling away. His name is Clay Patrick McBride, and he's a very famous photographer. And he saw my dev, and he says, "Oh, here's hunger." And and then he took him under his wing for his whole time there.
That's what you need.
Well, you need to be seen.
Yeah, I know.
And you can't be the gray man, right? In those artistic places, you cannot be the gray man. So I understand what you mean, that like, composers or artists or whatever, like, I don't know. I don't even think that they're kind.
No.
But I just like, I know that they're kind in a way that like Larry David is kind to other people. And like they're both prickly in the same language.
Right.
But like, I've seen so much conniving, backstabbing stuff in the art world that sometimes is in conflict with the principles that you are trying to apply to your life in recovery. Where like, I don't want to be, do I have to turn myself into this animal in order to be successful in this place of other people who are just trying to tear each other down? How did you bridge that gap?
Well, I have to do a little fifth step here with you. I became a little like that.
Of course, you have to.
And I was so jealous and so driven. I mean, I did a lot. I worked with Vonnegut. I did Life of Robert Frost, ballets, symphonies. In Rome, my second symphony, on and on. I taught some of the greatest jazz artists. 27. My rosters, nobody liked me. I mean, Michael Brecker won 12 Grammys and 20 gold records. He played the backups for Bee Gees and Saturday Night Live. Who's my student? He backed up Paul Simon, Joni Mitchell. Michael Stern played with Davis. My student. I'm on the back of all his records. I discovered Kip Winger, gorgeous. The Melodic Memory. I'm platinum with him. Oh, it went on and on and on. Jose Limon, the greatest Mexican choreographer ever. I wrote the epitaph for him at Juilliard. I walked out on the stage and took a bow 2 years in a row.
So to go from this guy lost in Iowa to taking bows at Lincoln Center and being known all over planet Earth and still being little old Edgar, it's hard.
Going home every night with myself and my own crotch and wanting to get laid so bad. I mean, I have come to appreciate. I was at Juilliard with Kevin Spacey.
Right.
I was at Juilliard with Val Kilmer. I wrote music for Kelly McGillis. I wrote it in her play. I see what they, we tear them apart, we make fun of them, we call them that. But dude, go what they have to go through. The whole world is picking at them like carnivores, like dogs, trying to get, pound of flesh. I sat in the cafeteria listening to Kelly tell the head of the drama department, I'm not going to sleep with him. I was listening. I'm not, Could I say no? So you develop all kinds of survival mechanisms, arrogance, sexual addiction. I became an alcoholic. I'm an addict too. I was not drinking. Let me not, what we're taught? You point the finger at Kevin Spacey, you got 3 coming back. You think you're better than Kevin? Well, you go do what he does. I mean, at 19, he was on Broadway. What is it? It's too much almost. It's too much.
Yeah, there's like this this thing where one of my favorite, I guess, comedy, I wouldn't say sketches or whatever. Anyway, so this guy, it's Bill Burr. He's talking about Tiger Woods, and he's saying, like, everybody's judging Tiger Woods when he had this affair and it broke up his wife, whatever, whole thing. She got $250 million, right, from him for that thing. And then people are judging, like, Tiger Woods, like, meanwhile it's all these fatties over at ESPN with their cheeseburgers. Like, do they even know what it's like to be tempted at that level?
And to hit the ball right when you got carnivores, dogs barking at your ankles, and women like saying, "Here I am."
Right. Well, as soon as he comes off the 18 hole, there's a whole busload of women.
Oh, I went to a concert with Kip Winger, Madison Square Garden. You want to introduce? Oh, you fucking kidding me?
Yeah.
Top of the line, gorgeous, heavy metal. They were lying down the hall. I could not believe it. Woman after girl after girl after, lying down the hall. They thought I was a drug dealer. I showed up with a suit and tie. I was like, how do you're not going to get turned on by that?
Yeah, you're asking a lot of a human, famous or not. You're asking a lot because especially people who, have a predisposition of desperation, for validation.
Right.
In a desperate way.
That's right.
Desperate enough that you end up getting to the top of that thing, that mountain, whatever it is. And then I try to give everybody their credit when I remember. So my friend Alex used to always say, what we do as addicts, alcoholic, whatever, we will climb that mountain and we will plant dynamite all the way up. And as soon as you get to the top, that's it.
That's it.
That's because there's nothing better than because we don't believe we deserve it.
That's right.
Meanwhile, you have all these accolades, all this stuff, and it's like you said, you're going home with yourself.
Or why do the Ethel Merman thing? You know what that is?
No,
You're home with Chinese food.
Yeah.
I'm serious. That's what she did.
Right. Yeah. No, listen, Chinese food and plaques.
That's right.
And platinum records and accolades.
Right.
And
and it was all I could do to keep my hand. I remember standing in my locker with a sensationally gorgeous dancer in tutu, in spandex, shaking. She was just being a girl, coming on to me, sending me buying signals. I was out of my mind.
Yeah.
I was awkward and she got.
Yeah, no, but I know that thing, over time, we know that every action, not even thoughts are just thoughts, but every action we take will either bring us towards a drink or away from a drink.
Right.
Regardless of what you're thinking.
That's right.
You're allowed to think whatever you want to think. It doesn't make you a bad person. Remember when we started and you were asking me about how I started the show, and I was like, yeah, I'd see clients, and then during the pandemic and they were having a bad day, and I would tell them it's okay for you to tell me that you want to strangle your kid or you want to throw your kid out the window after spending 18 hours a day with them on Zoom. Having it's abnormal to not have those kind of thoughts and whatever, but the problem with us that we have to respect is that when we ring that bell and we take those actions, without any pacifying alcohol or substance, we're going to have to live with the three witches: guilt, shame, and remorse, right? And and that's the spiritual part of the sickness. How do we live with what we've done? And that's where, it's not always easy. And for me, I had to learn how to trick myself into behaving. You trick yourself into behaving where it says, okay, initially, I tell the story a bunch of times in meetings where it's okay, well, how I learned how to be monogamous in my relationship. Initially, it was selfish. I wanted to know what it was like to just be with one person, so I can be oh, now I'm that guy that I don't do that thing, right? And then over time, from me not taking those actions, it turned into love and admiration and appreciation, like we were talking about, of somebody who is allowing us to be who we are, and accepting us from where we came from to where we are today, and all of those bruises that it takes for a relationship to grow and to flourish, and it evolves into that. But initially it was about me. Oh, no, I want to be. And then it turns into, no, it's because what I learned in recovery is that the greatest gifts come from legitimacy. That I didn't steal this thing, that I didn't taint it today with whatever, that I didn't steal this money from this client in order to buy my kid the bicycle because I wanted them to have, like, whatever. So I get to have that unadulterated experience, and there's no better high than to be like, all right, I kept the matches in the drawer for one freaking day, because I'm the same way. At my highest high of accomplishment and of admiration of others and whatever is when, for me, the devil or the demons, the bedevilments, that's when they show up. Because then they're like, oh, no, don't forget, you are a fucking dirtball, my friend. They're going to find out. The imposter syndrome? Yeah. I can't imagine, what was that like for you, like when you finally reach these heights as a sober man, and having that little voice that could be there and be like, oh, they're going to find out, Edgar, that you're a fucking piece of shit. You got kicked out of Carnegie Mellon. They're going to make a phone call and find out you're a phony.
Well, I'll tell you what did happen. There was an intervention. God intervened. Oh, yeah. So it's going up and up and up and up. I mean, it was unreal. I'd go to Tower Records, and there'd be my CD with Michael Brecker and Kurt Vonnegut. I'd be the only living person in the bin. It was like a graveyard, tombstones of CDs. Yeah. I'd go get the managers. Come here, that's me. Oh, I was so full of myself. Yeah, look, that's me.
I have arrived.
Oh, yeah. I could get laid when I want now. I'm somebody, as Marlon Brando said in On the Water. I'm somebody. By the way, I wrote the music for On the Waterfront.
Yeah.
I did the return of On the Waterfront on Off-Broadway with the guy that wrote the script. Oh, yeah, Bud Schulberg. I went out to his house. Commie. And anyway, oh, my good friend Jared. Now comes the rectifying time. Oh, I'm going. Look, I'm on the top. I'm on the top. I'm somebody. And it was never enough. Ooh, where did that come from?
Yeah.
How come John Adams has 17 CDs and Edgar Grant only has one? What did you just say, Edgar? Why does John Adams have 17 CDs and you only have one? Oh, God talking to me. What'd you just say? Say it a little louder. Why does John Adams have 17 CDs and I only have one? I thought that's what you said. When are you graduating, Edgar? 1983. Got a standing ovation. See how good I am? Oh, yeah. Called my name out. Everybody stood up. Now I'm on my way. You know what we say? God smiles. He lays out a path for me. Oh, called the garden path. You ever hear that?
Mm-hmm.
So I have to do jury duty. So Janet says, do it now because we can't wait for you to start making money. Who do I meet at jury duty? Guess who I meet? Kurt Vonnegut. I went to Iowa with his daughter. I bullshitted him. He gave me 8 pages of ecclesiastical Latin, and I wrote my CD that was on, became recorded on Newport Classic, which I nearly fucked up because I'm so stupid when it comes to power. I start running my mouth. I'm not careful. When you come up like that, when you're up here like that, you have to be careful. When you're running a ship, you can't just say anything you want. Yeah. And what is even worse, Jared O., I couldn't blame it on booze. I wasn't drinking. That's what you always have to remember when I talk. I was not drinking. The only person who was screwing this up was me. I was saying the wrongest things, and so, oh my God. God just laid out. He's hung up by the right-hand side of the room, laughing his ass off. Now I'm even getting more famous. And Janet gets pregnant. with my oldest son. And something happened. A certain feeling came over me, like, I'm talking to myself, Edgar, something's going on in your life you better pay attention to. You are about to be tested. You better keep going to AA, but you don't even know what it is to take the third step. You've been mouthing that motherfucker for 35 years. You don't know what it's like. You take 4 steps, like, you rattle off deficiencies like like chocolate chip cookies. And I knew something was wrong, Sherrod. So Janet had the baby. I got a studio in Manhattan, wonderful studio, good rate on West 53rd Street, down from Ed Sullivan thing. I could fuck in the studio if I want, I could drink, I could eat. I said, oh, look at this. When that door closes, I'm on my own. Uh-oh. So I got the fudge and the coffee and ate myself through. And then something happened, which I had no control over. The world invented computers. Ask your son about computers. All of a sudden, musicians could write music on computers. It didn't matter how much talent you had or how many long you practiced the bass. Started to lose students. All my best students had to go to Europe to find work. Computer was killing the music industry. Clubs were shutting down. Record labels were hiring computer-savvy people to do the backup things. My work began to shrink. 1984. My work began to shrink. You hear that, world? Began to shrink. Uh-oh. And then something else happened. My mother died of emphysema, 1992. Then my dad died of emphysema, suffocated to death. Now I'm an orphan at the age of 50 plus. I got nobody. I can't call up mommy to give me an extra check. Suddenly, sometime in the mid-'80s, my oldest son had a fever. Janet was holding him. I'll never forget this. I'm almost ready to cry. It was so terrifying because she's a brave woman. She's holding her baby. We had $50 in the checking account, and I took it to go to therapy. She let me have it to go to therapy. Not a doctor's appointment. Suddenly, we were going. This is the man that walked out on stage at Lincoln Center. This is somebody who was like double platinum. This is somebody that knew the conversations at Vonnegut's house at Kips Bay. Now he's walking his kid to grade school so Janet can work so we can feed them. No work. God said, how's it feel? How's it feel? You got some things to learn, because if you don't learn them, you're going to kill yourself. How's it feel when you're important? You got a lot of talent, Edgar, but you have no humility. None. So I go to an AA meeting. There's Pat O'Neill, the actor, gorgeous. Comes, he's always liked me. Came up to me. Hi, Pat. Hi, Edgar. You want a job, Edgar? Yes, I do. I need a job. I just opened up a restaurant called Landmark Tavern on 11th Avenue and 46th, the end of Restaurant Row. We need somebody to wash dishes. What? Excuse me? And make Irish soda bread. Oh, okay, Pat. All right. I go to my therapist, as I always do. It's the great rabbi, I call him. He looks at me and he goes, Edgar, are you working? I said, no. How long does it take to count $40? I said, next time you get paid, come into my office. We'll count it together. 1, 2, 3. Like 10 seconds, didn't it? Maybe more. I said, yeah. You better take that job. And that's when I learned, Mr. Jerry, I was lucky. I was fortunate. I didn't end up with talking to myself. I wasn't a Kevin Spacey or Kelly. God bless him. Nobody's pointing fingers. God provided me with humility. He shut me down. And he kept me down to 1999. No dough. Janet had to work. Thank God. She's a smart woman. She became a radiologist, conscriptionist. She had run the neurological research lab at NYU. She knows what she's doing. But was it the pain, Jared, to walk in that little boy to grade school while Janet went to work with no prospects? Nothing. I was so down, I was confused. Like, you know how you get, when you're working you have to think about, you have to shut the fear down for a minute and think about your next move. You've been there,
100%. Yeah.
You have to stop it for a minute. He says, just leave me alone for 10 minutes. I got to think. I couldn't even do that. Oh, I don't mess with God. Oh, yeah. Ooh, the worst. The worst. But now I've come to see it was a blessing. Such a blessing. He was keeping me from killing myself. Turning tricks under the iguana's top way, or even picking up heroin, or, whatever. And I was still playing with that. So I didn't know heroin, but I was still like looking over the volcano. I love looking over the volcano. Boy, it sure looks hot down there. Yeah, or flirt with this, or flirt with, maybe I go a little too far and get in bed. Oh, I played all that. And I paid a price. It never got any better. Yeah, I'm only learning things by doing them. I don't read a brochure and then it says, no, I'm like, That's not Edgar Grana. Oh, no. I get myself caught in the bear trap, and then I call up my sponsor and says, what do I do now? He says, oh, you want that? He'd laugh. He said, now you wait. What do you mean I wait? Well, you got to wait. See if she's going to sue you.
Yeah.
For rape, statutory rape. Women do all kinds of things today. Even if it's not true, they don't care. The world's on their side.
Yeah. That's why you got to be careful.
Yeah, just now, I'm coming out of something. I went all the way up to the edge. This woman was, coming on to me on Zoom like you could not, showing up in her underpants, on and on and on. I walked up to the Upper East Side, and I'm sitting there going, Edgar, this is just this week. I'm saying to myself, Edgar, you left this culture years ago. You do not belong on the Upper East Side. You're not some wealthy hedge fund guy. You're not an East Sider anymore. You live in Brooklyn with your quiet life, with your 2 boys and your grandchild. Get out of here. Pick yourself up, just like God said to Abraham, rise up and go to Haran. Get out. That was what the voice was. I picked myself up and I went and I made a conscious decision yesterday morning before prayer. That's it. I'm not going on that Zoom meeting anymore. That's over. It's history. Edgar will not show up. No. But in order to get to that, like every alcoholic, I had to go all the way up just to the tippy edge of the diving board, take a look, and realize there was no water in the pool.
Yeah.
And that's when I realized, I've come to see in my longevity that these things are awful. It's not that I'm not any more sober than you or less sober. I'm an addict. And like an addict, I push my limits. And then I get hauled back to the program on a leash.
Yeah, that's why the saying is with the monkeys off your back, but the circus is always in town.
Oh, man. I'm Italian. My old Al-Anon sponsor said, Edgar, you've got 2 addictions. Now, let's get honest. You're an alcoholic and you're Italian. You fall in love every time the door opens. You're falling in love. And he used to laugh at me. Who are we in love with now? But it was God's way of creating humility in my heart. The only way I learned this. I could not be told this by a sponsor of the program. I can take all the steps. I had to learn it. I had to go do it and go, oh, this is so painful. Why am I doing this?
We only, and oddly enough, it's at the near peril of other people, Oh,
I walked home last night by myself. No, 2 nights ago, saying, you're going to go see that wonderful friend of yours, Jared. You're going to get, look at this good stuff. You've never had a blah, blah. You're going to have an opportunity to broadcast yourself a little. What are you doing? Edgar, what are you doing?
Planting dynamite.
That's right. And then I said, No. But now the healthy part is, after 50-some years, is I listen to that voice now, and I go, no.
Yeah.
No. And I go, no. I go like this, no. You're not going to get on that Zoom meeting with her looking at you, with God only knows what. That's it. It's over. You're going to shut it, and you'll find another Zoom meeting, or you'll go to an in-person, but you're not going back there. You hear, Edgar? That's God talking to me. I said, yeah, you got it. You know why, Edgar? I say, why, God? Because you're on the verge of possibly huge success with your musical. You got endorsed by the personal representative of the Dalai Lama. You got endorsed by the lyricist for Fiddler on the Roof. Are you going to toss that out?
Yeah, because you have all this new stuff going now, right?
Yeah.
You're back up.
Back up the glass mountain, right.
You're climbing up, and here you are planting the dynamite.
Excuse me, I'm busy right now.
On the Upper East Side with some bird.
Oh, she's gorgeous. But
It
that's
doesn't
bullshit.
matter.
Doesn't matter. She could be
It's a mirage. It don't matter.
Doesn't matter.
It could be the checkout girl at CVS.
That's right. Which most of the time it is.
Yeah.
Oh, no offense, CVS.
No, not at all. But no, it's those things where that voice inside of you just says, no, Edgar, you're not going to feel alive until all the scorecards read 0. Right? Like it says in the book.
Yeah.
That's when we feel alive.
That's right.
But until then, you're in service of others.
Yeah. And I'm a great teacher. I have taught hundreds and hundreds of people to be better composers. I mean, I posted myself on Facebook I can't tell you that. Oh, no, Edgar, you're wonderful. We get inspiring. I'm saying, oh, Edgar, it got real serious now. And I said, Edgar, when are you going to take these people's love seriously? You can't trash this.
Yeah.
This is gold. What would it be like for these people to understand that you're out disappearing on someplace in God knows where? Are you going to do that?
Because people, a portion of them depends on you.
That's right.
Because you're dependable.
That's right.
That's what it is. It's not like they're not like in a codependent way, but they know that they can rely on Edgar.
That's right.
As an instructor, as a professor, like you're here, teaching at these schools. It's ridiculous that people they're clamoring to get into. Now somebody's going to be knocking on your door.
You should see the Chinese. I just got a letter today before I came. Oh, Mr. Grant, I switched out. I want to be in your class. I heard about you in mainland China. In mainland China?
Wow.
But God says to me all the time, you're going to do I have to get up every morning. There's a guy out in, you know him. His name's John. He's a Puerto Rican. Big, like this. He's great sobriety.
Yeah.
He says, every morning I wake up and I have a choice between justice and acting out. It's a choice. It never gets any better. I can never make it last for more than today. This morning I got up, I laid in bed. She looks good. Well, maybe I'll act out. I'll be gay for a while. I'm talking, this is my insanity.
Right.
There's nothing I can say to myself that's going to stop that. What do? Take my pajamas off, and I get up. I throw the pillow on the floor, and I make the bed. I move my butt. And when I do that, I by myself a couple of minutes, and back on the chandra, back into the 11th step, and I start again. But it's not going to last until tomorrow morning.
Yeah.
In fact, I'm thinking about it now, just sitting there talking. You know what I have thoughts about tomorrow morning? This never goes away. A little fear and a little anxiety. I got to do an online teaching with a very smart student tomorrow morning. And would you know, I have just that old feeling of uncertainty. Yeah. Old feeling.
Yeah, that lady who said you had no talent.
That's right.
Yeah.
As a small business owner once said to me in the program, he says, every morning I wake up, I don't have a job.
Yeah. I know I have these anxieties because I still have that voice inside that always says, you can be great.
That's right.
Like what I have is not enough. Like, no, you can be great. Like, this is not greatness. You can be great. And then I have to say, well, I guess I'm just going to try today, but the gifts only come, the greatness is a feeling, because there's no amount of accolades that will, there's no, like I said, the cash and prizes. Like when I came in and I got sober, I had already burned through all of those things. So I knew that no amount of money or toys or whatever would ever take me out. Drinking, the pursuit of that, because I know that those are like very empty things,
Yeah.
But my what keeps me here is just regular stuff like what I'm doing now. Hanging out with you. Look at that fucking moth. Hanging out with you, doing this show. This is everything. This is everything. Anyway, Edgar, we're going to wrap it up. I appreciate you coming out.
I have a feeling you're going to chop this thing up.
No, maybe we'll make it 2 episodes. It'll be nice. It'll be like, before sobriety and then after sobriety. So
Okay.
No, yeah, before you got sober and then after you got sober, because it's a 2-part story. And then, you really, like I said, you inspired me. Remember I was telling you about the lady who learned German. I told you when you lost all that weight, I was scared to ask you. I thought you got sick. And then, because Edgar's, he's not a spring chicken, But, when you told me, no, I did keto, it made my day. It made my day, because it's like, because that means you're taking yourself seriously. You're taking your health seriously.
Yeah, I am.
Yeah, health is wealth. So
That's all you have.
that's it. All right, guys, we love you. We'll see you
Thank
on the
you.
flip side. Have a great day. Peace.